Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 4, we're going to break up into 2 parts. Step 4 is amazing because it uncovers all the thoughts and emotions that fuel our insane behaviors and helps identify new ways of thinking and feeling that we can use in recovery. So step 4 prepares us for the rest of the steps, which beginning after the steps are really the action steps to restore us to sanity. So in step 4, we talk about this searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. And so to do a moral inventory, we really have to remove fear out of our space because it's scary to inventory. Like, it's scary to take inventory of your finances. It's scary to take inventory of the missing socks. It's scary to take inventory of, my gosh, like I've taken inventory of just like the staples I have in my house, and it's like, oh my God, where did they all go? Did someone eat them? Like, inventory can be scary. Or if you work in a store, you know, taking inventory at the end of the month, oh my God, well, did someone steal it? Like, inventory can be, there can be some fear behind it.
Yeah, so I wanted to clarify when you said we need to take fear out of this, that we're clarifying that fear, like you said, there's fear behind it. There's fear to take this step. There's a lot of fear surrounding digging deeper and uncovering these emotions. One of those emotions that you might be uncovering could absolutely be fear.
Yes.
So it doesn't, one of the hugest impacts of this step for me was identifying such a wide variety of emotions that I hadn't really thought about. That, you know, there's some examples in the back of the big book, which we'll get to in a little while, but things that I wouldn't have pointed to. I think a lot of times we resort to, like, you know, are you sad? Are you angry? And those, we kind of think that everything else should come out of those, but things in here like guilt or
resentment
or
confusion.
Confusion was a huge one.
Or
that I was
self-pity.
like, you know what? Yeah, self-pity. Like, those, just hearing those list of potential emotions, for me, just like a light bulb went off that like, yeah, because I always struggled with pointing to the underlying emotion behind the eating disorder behaviors. And I was like, I'm not angry, but maybe I was confused, or maybe it was self-pity, or maybe it was, you know, frustration on its way to anger or something. So I think just this is absolutely a very powerful step, which is why we're planning on breaking it into 2 parts, because it deserves a deeper dive.
It does. And you know, I got hung up on taking step 4 because I wanted to do it the right way. And so I actually thought about like creating a spreadsheet on like Google Docs and creating this whole, but basically however you do it is however you do it. And where in the back of the big book, if you're online or in your big book, in Appendix D, they give examples of the, of sort of the structure of the inventory.
And where is this located on the website too?
When they're on the website, if they go into the big book link, they can get it right there. It's in chapter, well, it'll be in the appendix. And then step 4 will be in the chapters, how it works, steps 1 to 4. So the emotions that they suggest we look at in the step 4 are resentment to the people or the institutions that made or make you angry. So it could be anybody, family member or not, or a place that made or makes you angry. And as you said, Sherry, fear. Things that frightened or still frighten me. And anything, any person, place, like any noun, you know?
And the other big piece of this is not, it's just you and a piece of paper.
Exactly.
Like, it could be what anybody else might think might be the silliest fear that you would never say out loud, but it's worth putting down. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be, it can be the bigger themes. Like, I'm scared, I fear that my children will die. You know, that's like one of the greatest fears there is. But there might be lesser fears. Like, I fear going to work and making a mistake. Like, that's valid too. Right. So, you know, it doesn't have, I mean,
whatever you think works, right? Whatever you think, yeah, there's nothing, and if you do look at the example, back to what you said, don't feel like you have to stick with what the example says, or you can't go, like, it's whatever works for you.
Let it be a starting point.
A starting point, yeah. And it's simply a journaling exercise. Now, I will say, if one of these emotions in this 4th step inventory doesn't feel like it works for you, push a little bit into that, because I was really working with confusion and self-pity, and I was like, I don't have that. And the more that I pushed a little bit into that, I saw that there were some things that fit for me. Like, off the cuff, I was like, oh my gosh, I could totally go with fear for days.
Right.
And maybe that's what you do. Maybe you take just the one that really strikes you the most first, or you take the one that strikes you the least to see what's there for you. So
I would trust, what strikes you. Dive in wherever you feel comfortable. Like
just
you said,
dive
there's
in.
no right or wrong.
No right or wrong. And we are going to break it into 2 steps, but don't feel like you have to stay in step 4 forever. I will tell you that 2 weekends ago, I went to step 4 4 times. I went to step 4 with my colleague who stood me up for a work meeting on Friday. I took step 4 with my mom on Saturday. I took step 4 with my mom on Sunday, and I took step 4 with my friend on Monday. Like, it was boom, boom, boom in a row. And so I often go back to step 4 let me finish with the emotions in general. So fear, resentment are 2 of them. Self-pity, shame, so much shame, guilt, confusion, frustration, despair, and I think it says that. I said self-pity. So, for example, let's just say you chose, I'll use shame. So my mom had left me a sort of shaming voicemail around being in the park with my kids, and how she felt that my actions weren't what she should do, and that we shoulda, woulda, coulda. Like, she was shoulding all over herself and shoulding all over me. Shoulding, I said, S-H-O-U-L-D. Anyway, so I took it to the 4th step, and I thought, gosh, I'm feeling lots of shame and guilt. And so the source was this phone call from my mom. That's the first thing to identify. Like, what caused this feeling to arise? And so for me, total shame and guilt over my mom leaving a voicemail about what I had done or not done with my kids.
And what you'll see in the worksheets too, like, you might have a couple rows. There might be multiple things. You're not going to lump it all together. Like, you wouldn't put in the same row, like, your mom and XYZ. You're going to break each one of them down, because each one of them might have very different answers.
Excellent. Great point. And again, don't feel like you need to do it in any certain way or wrong, but you want to identify the source, all the sources of your feeling. And again, you could probably do this. Well, I could do this every day and it would change. So just start with a couple. Yeah. I'm just giving one example of my mom. So then the reason or the cause of my shame was because she, the voicemail was left. And so the source is her and the voicemail. And the reason or the cause is because I didn't feel adequate as a mom, so that caused me to feel shame. So what was at risk because of that? Well, my self-confidence and my trust and my worthiness.
Children.
My children, right. My error was allowing someone else to let me feel in a way. And my part was not listening to what she had to say, because there was a part, an inkling of her that was there. And so my part was automatically going to being angry at her when there was an element of her really, really caring about me. There was an element of love coming from her. Right. So that was my part with blocking that off. So the resolution was to take what I can and leave the rest, pull out from her the shaming and the guilt part that was lingering for me, and to text her and just say, thank you for your concern, and to put that in my think tank for next time.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's just one example. And again, you may have...
And that's a day-to-day. For me, the first time we went through it, I feel like a lot of times the first time you're introduced to this, you're looking at the major things. Like, those are the things that tend to come to mind right away, is like when you're new to the steps, when you're new to even acknowledging that you have an eating disorder, a lot of times you're going to like the major things going on, or the trends, or the things that seem to keep coming up time and time again. And like we said, dig in. Like, look at that.
Yeah.
See if there's anything, like one of my biggest takeaways was the resolution where it's kind of like, what can you do about this?
Oh,
You're
total
not going to
personal
change your mom.
Nope.
Like what steps can you take to potentially alleviate some of this shame?
Mm-hmm.
And that's so powerful to think about your life that way
Yeah.
on a regular
Oh, yeah.
basis, that like, you know, no, you're not handling anybody else's stuff. You're not worrying about, you're just, what can you do?
Yeah, and the power is our responsibility ultimately for
Yeah.
recovery.
Yeah.
So the main points of the 4th step exercise are to establish a list of flaws in our thinking. Not that like we're bad or wrong, just flaws in our thinking. Areas where we have been caught short in the past so that we can address these squarely and effectively. And the second main point of the 4th step exercise, this inventory, is to then, like you said, Terry, resolution, to define a new plan of action for how we would like to respond to each familiar situation in the future. We're planning exactly how we will act, not be in reaction of. So we are being proactive because these situations are going to all come up in different ways with different people. But in the 4th step, we're looking at what we did do and what we can do. Yeah. And again, like any inventory, it's like before I go shopping each season, I look, okay, how many shorts do I have? How many bathing suits do I have? You know, what do I need to do going forward?
Yeah.
Rather than I'm not coming back then with the same exact, like I've done this before. I've gone out to buy black shorts and I'm like, I already have 4 pairs of black shorts. Yes. Why didn't I take an inventory? You know what I mean? And see what I needed. So the best thing to do is to have an empty notebook that's wide open and have a pencil and a paper to brainstorm.
Yeah.
So we're gonna leave you with that basic step and come back with a little bit more detail into actually how to take the inventory. Bye.
Sounds good. Bye.